Hello there, my name's Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art. Welcome to my channel. Recently I went to an estate sale and I picked up several items all for $1 total. One of those items was this vinyl flannel-backed tablecloth. One of my favorite things to do with these vinyl tablecloths is to make grocery bag totes. And the reason is the lining becomes the vinyl tablecloth, and that is easy to clean, easy to wipe out. Whatever you got at the grocery store, if something leaks, you can just wipe it out. It's great. Now, I was doing some figuring here. Normally I have a set size. I like to do these grocery totes, but I just wanted to see how many of these I could get out of this vinyl tablecloth. I decided to just cut this vinyl tablecloth into 4 equal parts, and I was going to alter the size. They are going to be a little bit smaller than my normal grocery tote. That's quite all right. Now what you'll see me doing here is cutting a little box on the fold of the bag. So this is a vinyl tablecloth folded in half. I'm cutting out a little corner with equal sides, and this is going to be my box corner of the bottom of my bag. I'll be sewing scraps to the flannel side of this tablecloth. I'm going to start with a square at the bottom, and I'm going to sew scraps to each side going all the way up to the top of the bag. I'm going to have some raw edges in the bottom of the bag, and I'm going to just cover those up with almost like an applique patch. What I'm looking for here in my scrap pile are pieces that will make strips, and I'm really not worried about the width of these strips. I'm just taking skinny strips, wide strips. In some cases, I'm cutting fabric into a strip if I have a big enough piece. With all this sorted out, it is time to start sewing this bag. I am going to start with a square on the bottom of my bag, and I'm placing it on point. Then I'm going to sew a strip to one side, a strip to the other side, and I'm going to keep building on those strips all the way to the top of the bag. Well, I made it to the top of the bag, and as you can see, as you get closer to the top of the bag, the little strips are going to be a little bit shorter. So I turned the bag around and I started from the other side of that original square that's going to be the bottom of the bag. And you can see at the bottom of the bag I am going to have some raw edges, but that's okay. I'm just going to cover those up with a little patch, and that's going to make the bottom of the bag even sturdier. I'm going to go around the outside of my bag template, and I am going to trim off anything that is overhanging my pattern. Now here's a quick look at my little applique patches on the bottom of the bag. I simply pressed under 3 sides of a little scrap of fabric and I stitched it down with a zigzag stitch, and that is going to reinforce the bottom of my bag, plus cover up all those raw edges. Now it is time to attach my straps to the bag, and I do not attach them all the way to the top of the bag because I'm going to finish the top of the bag. I'm going to attach them with about 2 inches to spare so that I can fold that back and finish the top of the bag. I am placing these straps 6 inches from the edge of the bag and 6 inches down from the top of the bag. I'm using nylon strapping that is about 1 inch wide, and these straps for each side of the bag are about 1 yard each. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stitch down the bottom portion of these straps, leaving the top of the bag a little bit loose. I'm just going around this strap on 3 sides with a straight stitch. After I get that portion of the strap stitched down, I pin the rest of the strap out of my way. Now it's time to finish stitching this bag. I fold the bag in half, right sides together, and the first thing we're going to do is stitch the side seams. I'm going to be using clips to keep the sides of my bag all together. I usually sew about a 1/2 inch seam on these side seams. I want to make sure I catch all the fabric. Then the next thing I do is trim away down to a little bit less than 1/4 inch. Then I go back over the seam with a blanket stitch to reinforce it. Now it's time to do the box seam. I like to open that like a popcorn bag, and I want the center of the bottom of my bag to match the center where that seam was just stitched. I am going to use clips again to hold it in place. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and use about a 1/2 inch seam Then I'm going to trim back, and then I'm going to go over it one more time with a blanket stitch. Now we'll turn the bag right sides out, and I will be double checking all my seams. Since I'm using that 1/2 inch seam, I very rarely have a problem with any of my fabric not getting caught up in that seam. Next, we're going to be binding the top of the bag. I've got some pre-made binding here. They're 2.5 inch strips that I've folded in half and pressed. I start the beginning of my binding by folding down the binding at a 45-degree angle. Then I fold the binding back in half. This creates a little pocket, and that pocket is going to be where the tail end of my binding gets tucked into. Now when I start stitching my binding to the bag, I've got to make sure and leave that pocket open. I start my stitching a few inches after the pocket. I'm using a straight stitch to stitch this binding to the top of my bag. Once I get to the end, I trim the tail end at an angle, tuck it into the pocket, and finish stitching it down. Here you see I'm trimming away some uneven edges. Then I simply turn the bag right side out. I flip that binding around to the right side of the bag, and I am using a zigzag stitch to attach the binding to the front of the bag. And the very last step in completing this bag is to finish stitching down those straps. These grocery totes are such a great way to use up your scraps or your stash. They're also great for using up ugly fabrics that you don't know what to do with. In my case, this bag was given to a friend the same day I made it. If you're enjoying my channel, I invite you to subscribe and click that bell icon to get notified when I post new videos. I really enjoy having fun with scraps, and I hope you do too. I hope to see you back again real soon. Thanks for joining me.